investments and Sam Altman saying that you can reach 1 billion revenue with, say, AI agents and one employee or zero employees now. So how was it possible from your end, and how did you pull that off?
We only have 24 hours in a day, and so if you have a process, there's many things you can automate. So it takes zero time from you once it's automated. And of course, today it's probably much easier to automate because you can just ask an AI agent and say, just do the work for me.
So why did you choose to focus exclusively on Y Combinator startups as a VC?
Well, YC is probably one of the biggest one of the best place that you could invest, because you're going to have the best
what common mistakes do you see first-time founders make?
Sort of poor money management overall, including hiring people that you don't really need.
What are some of the industries that you fund in? So is it based on AI or non-AI, or what's it about? What's your investment philosophy?
I've invested.
So, welcome to AI Disruptors, the podcast where we explore the groundbreaking stories and insights from leaders shaping the future of technology, innovation, and artificial intelligence. And today we have an extraordinary guest joining us. Gabriel Jorosa is a 7-time founder with 3 successful exits. So he has accomplished the rare feat of bootstrapping a company to 1 million ARR with 0 employees. So now, as a VC at Lobster Capital, Gabriel is laser focused on funding Y Combinator startups that aim to transform the world. So in this episode, we'll dive into his entrepreneurial journey, his unique investment philosophies, and the wisdom he has gained from being both as a founder and as an investor. So without any further delay, let's welcome Gabriel Jorosan to AI Disruptors. Gabriel, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. And to start off with, so can you share your journey from being a 7-time founder to becoming a VC at Lobster Capital?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be chatting with you. So I'm a computer science engineer originally, but very quickly, very young actually, starting at 13, I learned HTML when I was 13 and was fascinated with the computers. But actually, more importantly, I was fascinated with entrepreneurship. I wanted to start something. And so, like you said, I started many companies. I actually, started even more businesses, but I'm saying 7, that's the ones that I actually made money with and went further.
Okay.
But when I was like 17, 18, I would have a new business every week. I would have a new idea, maybe buy a domain name, start a website, and then I would stop there. So I've always been passionate with that, and this led me to investing, because after building several businesses in very, very different categories and spaces, I would realize there are always some common points, some common things. When you start a business, there's always this make something people want. There's always customer acquisition. There's always, building the product and talking to your users, etc., etc. So I realized if I see other startups that are doing the same mistakes as me, I can recognize those mistakes. And if I see other startups that are navigating the waters better than me, they're not doing the mistakes that I made, then I can invest in them. I think they're already on the right path. So I started angel investing in 2013. It's 12 years ago now. And this did well. And so the journey to having my own VC fund is, after being an angel, I started an angel syndicate. I started, sharing my deals with other angel investors. And this angel syndicate did pretty well. It grew quite big and did well. Started investing in YC. So because of my access, or we should say my proximity to the YC network, and because of the strong results of my syndicate, I then decided to start my own firm. And so that was in 2023. And now I've closed my first fund, very, very much oversubscribed, and, going from there for building the future.
Oh, that's great. And I'm able to resonate your story with my story as well, because I also started very young, at the age of 14, 15. I also get many ideas. I'd start kind of working on those ideas by buying a domain name first. And then hope I also enter into the VC game sooner or later in the future as well. So cool. So let's expand on the that bit further. What were the key lessons from your four failed ventures, and how did you shape up your success in your three successful exits?
Yes, I mean, so first of all, I want to add that my exits, none of them were pretty big. Okay, I'm not trying to
Mm,
pretend that it was huge exits, huge acquisitions. Still, it's an exit. You have to build something
yeah,
that has enough value that somebody wants to buy it and pay money for it, right? It's
correct.
not an exit where I give you the company for free.
Yes. Maybe you
But
pivoted a little early, maybe.
yeah, and so that's even those exits. I don't consider them massive successes because for
Mm,
me, a massive success is now it's like a $1 billion valuation, a unicorn, and I've never built a unicorn, never reached that status. But what I can tell you with what I learned from my failures, I mean, a lot of things because I really started from scratch, so I had
okay.
zero knowledge and knew almost nothing, but I would say the biggest, the most important things would have been to build a business in a domain, in a space that you love, that you're passionate about. Entrepreneurship is so hard and so difficult. It's going to take years and years and years. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be much harder. So I give you a very specific example. My very first business was selling wine online. I'm French
Also.
originally. And so, the French wine is one of the
Mhm.
best in the world, or maybe the best in the world. So I thought I could just sell wine. And while it's an interesting business, there's a lot of people drinking and buying wine. I personally was not passionate about it. I actually didn't know much about wine when I started, so I learned along the way. But because I didn't have the passion, it was much harder for me to keep at it. And so now that I'm running a business in a domain that I love, which is I'm running a VC firm. It is a business and it's an area that I love. It's startups and entrepreneurship. It's much, much easier for me to do it on the long run because that would be really one thing, super, super important. And then the second thing I would want to mention here is, to talk to your users as early as possible, to talk to your customers
Mm,
and to put your product or whatever you're doing or building as early as possible, as quickly as possible in front of them to get their feedback and try to sell. And that's an advice I find in YC as well. They, tell you to go sell to your users as quickly as possible. But there's this thing, I call it engineer syndrome, but it's not only engineers, is where you're going to build in your room for months, sometimes for years, without talking to a single users. And after 1, 2, 3 years of building, only then you're going to realize that's not what they want. They don't care about what you've built. And I've done that mistake as well when I was much younger. So those would be, there's hundreds and hundreds or thousands of learnings, but those would be the two that I would really want to mention here.
yes. So I think the tagline "Make something people want" is the real tagline for startups, right? So it resonates with us on each stage of our startup
I
journey.
agree. I agree. And
Yes,
it seems so simple. It seems so obvious, but
yeah,
actually it means a lot of things. And it means also
correct,
this. It means go talk to them and find out what they want and then
correct.
make it. You have to be able to actually make it and then you have to sell it. If they want it, you make it and they want it, then you sell it. So, this seemingly very simple phrase means a lot of
Correct.
things. And they're actually most startups that I see that are not YC don't
Mhm.
follow that advice well enough. Yeah.
Got that. Okay. So we saw that you have bootstrapped and reached 1 million ARR with zero employees. Now that might be possible because of AI agents and Sam Altman saying that you can reach 1 billion revenue with, say, AI agents and one employee or zero employees now. So how was it possible from your end, and how did you pull that off?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Thank you for mentioning. I did it before it was cool.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing. So there are several things that to answer that question. But first of all, I've always been fascinated and very interested with automation. We only have 24 hours in a day, and so if you have a process, there's many things you can automate. So it takes zero time from you once it's automated. And of course, today it's probably much easier to automate because you can just ask an AI agent and say, just do the work for me. But at the time, you had to be quite creative. So I've always been looking for ways to automate my work, and every time I was doing something 3, 4, 5 times the same thing, I was thinking to myself, how can I automate that? And many times I would find a way. So the first part of the answer is just spend a lot of time with tools, tools like Make or Zapier or Typeform or etc. to just try to connect all of your data flow together and try to make it work seamlessly. So that's one thing. Then stuff that sometimes I couldn't automate, I would either delegate to a freelancer, so no employee, but a freelancer that would do it for me from time to time, maybe once a week, once a month, or a few times a year. Or I would try to build software for it. So again, I would hire a freelance developer and say, well, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't want to pay after paying a freelancer for doing it for several months or years, I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm spending all of that money. I should try to automate it with code. So build custom code. That's the second thing. And so that's on the sort of the delivery of how your business actually, works, what you do, etc. But then it's about customer acquisition. How do you get so many customers? How do you talk to them, etc. And so on that front, what's really interesting is I also try to automate my marketing. And so what did I do to automate my marketing was YouTube. I'm guessing, this video format we're doing together is going to be on YouTube at some point. And that's exactly what I would do. I would create YouTube content. I still do. And then YouTube is one too many. I would do my marketing, explain what I'm doing, but you just do it once, you put it on YouTube, and then hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people can see it. I automated a bunch of emails of welcome series. This is how it works. This is how you should do. So they would, I would minimize the support that I would get, the questions, the emails. Everything was, optimized for me to remain alone. And then instead of answering customers' questions one by one, I would group things. So I would say once a week, there's a support Zoom. And if you have any question, you can send me an email, but your email is most likely not going to be answered. Come to the Zoom, and then I do one too many, because I would realize in every company, customers tend to have the same questions, all of them. So I would say, come to the Zoom, and I'll answer you, and then the Zoom was recorded, and I would publish it, and then you have a database of cases of stuff. So automated marketing, automated dealing. One too many with the customers and the problems they could have, and then on the running of the business, automating most of it itself. 1 to million. So, and by the way, increasing prices as well is also a good way to so
To
my
reach
service
1
was
million.
good. Exactly, my service was good. People were loving it. I would increase the price, and here we are.
Oh, that's great. Okay. And by the way, what was the product about?
Yes, I figured you would ask that question. So
Yes.
it was my investment syndicate that I mentioned. So when I started sharing deal flow, I realized I was having very specific, unique deal flow that people would really want to invest in, and so I had the luxury of having a paid membership for that investment group. Most of the investment groups are free. But I decided, because I'm going to do high quality content and deals, etc., I had a paid membership for that. So that's the product.
That's interesting. Okay. So why did you choose to focus exclusively on Y Combinator startups as a VC, and what distinguishes YC startups from others in terms of, say, investment potential? You had also mentioned that you invest on top 2% of YC startups, right? So can you walk us through the process of identifying the top 2% of the startups? Is it
Yes.
based on revenue or traction or innovation or the product market fit?
Yes, absolutely. So why did I choose YC? First of all, so I'm French. I've mentioned that. So when I started investing in France originally, my first startup investments. But very quickly I realized I'm investing in tech startups. The best tech startups in the world. They're not in France and Paris. They're in Silicon Valley. So I just moved here and I said, okay, I'm gonna invest here. Okay. And when I arrived in San Francisco, I didn't know much. I didn't know anyone. And so I thought to myself, okay, I need to find the best deal flow here in Silicon Valley, the best deal flow possible. And this name kept coming back. Y Combinator, YC, YC. So I tried to invest in YC, as you know, quite difficult, especially at the time, or even today probably, but didn't really have access. But met some people and made a few investments in the US and then in YC, and then one thing brought another, and here I was. So sometimes jokingly, when people ask me, why do you only invest in YC? I answer, because I can. YC has a lot of discrepancy, but I think if you choose them well, YC is probably one of the biggest potential, one of the best place that you could invest, because you're going to have the best return. And my job is to have the best return as a fund manager, to give the best return to my investors and my LPs. And of course, I don't stop there. I don't just invest in YC, in any YC company. I invest in what I call the top 2% of YC companies. And so what, this is an arbitrary construct. And so what I call top 2% is, and you mentioned it, you guessed it, is the top 2% in terms of early traction and in terms of revenue. In every YC batch, there's a few companies, it's a different number every time, but like maybe 5 or something. So that's 2% that have tremendous levels of traction despite being very young companies. They've figured something out and they've executed extremely quickly and rapidly. And so while most YC companies may at demo day have, $5, $10, $20,000 of revenue, some of those companies have $500,000 of revenue, $1 million. I've even invested in a company that had $2 million of revenue at demo day. And so that's where I like to come in and invest in. Those deals obviously are the hardest to get in.
And what is your version of product market fit? Is it based on revenue, or is it based on the initial traction, or is it based on the innovation? How do you see?
For sure, it's not based on innovation. You could, if you're selling water in the desert, you're going to have product market fit, and it's not an innovation. You're just at the right place at the right time. So yes, it's based on revenue and traction. It's not necessarily an exact, precise number. It's more a velocity. It's more a speed of getting new customers. How many customers actually come to you versus you going to them? Are they referred by existing customers who bring, who talk about your product in their industry? And how fast it's going and growing. That's when you can say you have product market fit.
That's exactly right. I recently heard a very interesting answer for this question. So he mentioned, when your average salesperson is able to close enterprise deals, then it means that you have attained product market fit. It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's, same thing. It's like when there's, for me, I see it as a sort of a pull from the market. Is literally customers are coming to you and pushing. Exactly.
Okay, cool. And speaking about this, what common mistakes do you see first-time founders make? And how do you kind of help them out from there?
For common mistakes from first-time founders. Yeah, I mean, so not talking to users enough. We've talked about that. Not pivoting. So it's hard to let go of your idea and move on to something else. But sometimes it's actually, on the other side is a great company. So this is a mistake that I see often. Hiring. Hiring is very difficult, but you have to hire people that are better than you. Which is also difficult because, it could be scary. You might be thinking, oh, they're so talented, they're going to take my job, or it's going to show my incompetence or something like that. So hiring is extremely, extremely difficult. And for second and third time founders as well, it is difficult, but usually you have the experience. You remember that you need to hire, very good, very smart people.
You need to hire only when it is required, right? And not hire just because you've got the funding and just because I have a cozy office space that I can have 50 members in my team.
So that's absolutely. I was going to say sort of poor money management overall, including hiring people that you don't really need. Those YC companies, they tend to raise rather more money than the rest. So they're going to raise between 2 and 5 million seed rounds. So they sometimes raising too much money could sort of kill you. You could hire too many people, or you could just spend too much too quickly. Maybe it's not on hiring, but and also you have to stay noodle profitable or ramen profitable, which is a YC company, or you make $1 per day, so you can keep your company afloat. So people sometimes they don't. It's not that they spend too much or hire the wrong people. Just at some point there's a problem with the company. Something changes and the revenue stops, but they're not able to keep the company afloat to reduce the spend. You have to be able, as a founder, to say, that's not what you want to do. That's not the ideal. But you have to be able to say, we don't have any more money coming in. I'm firing everyone. I'm just going to be working on my own and just keep the company alive until we figure this out and until we grow again. It's very difficult to do. I don't wish on anyone upon anyone to have to do that, but it's better than having the company go to zero. This has happened to me before, actually several times, with companies that suddenly the revenue dries up for some reason, but the company dies. Mm-hmm. And actually, it doesn't have to be this way. You can just reduce the spend to zero and try to start the company again, only if you're able and willing and know how to do that. Yeah.
Makes sense, complete sense. So what is your take on AI, specifically on AI agents now?
AI, when it started, so 2022, well, it's not when AI started. It started way before, but when it became this
exponentially higher, yes,
exactly, very, very popular. At the very beginning, I was extremely cautious, and I was not investing for the first few months. I stayed out, observed, and I really wanted to see how it was evolving. It was too early for me. So, end of 22, beginning of 23, I didn't invest. I was observing. It was this new shiny object thing, and I was not sure. Then in 23, I made up my mind, and I said, okay, AI is actually something extremely important. It is very useful in the real world. It's much more useful than NFTs and cryptos that most people never touch in their daily life. But for a company, using AI could bring meaningful change, positive. And so I thought, okay, in 23 I decided I'm going to invest. I'm going to jump in, but still I kept my sort of skepticism and carefulness about not investing in everything in one thing. Now, AI agents, more specifically, I think are sort of the next big thing in 2025. That's what most people are going to talk about and be excited about. I'm very lucky investing in YC, being in this environment all the time, that YC is really at the edge of innovation. They're really some of the most advanced startups in the world. And so I've actually seen agents in action for a while. When it comes to the sort of the general public, to the mainstream, usually I've seen it already, and I had a lot of experience. So I've seen agents already. YC companies use them. As you know, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, used to be YC's president or CEO or something before he left to start OpenAI. So they've kept very, very close ties. They run hackathons together. There was just a few months ago a hackathon between OpenAI and YC at the YC office, and Sam Altman was there personally. So he takes this quite seriously. And by the way, the YC startups usually have access to models, to OpenAI models that are not even available to the public. So they have access to models before everyone else. And so they've had access to agents for quite some time. So I think agents are going to be, I think it's going to be amazing. A lot of people are going to be able to use it. Today, AI is used more and more in companies, but I think agents is going to accelerate that. There's still a lot of companies that don't use AI at all. Still the majority, not the tech companies, but if you take I don't know what
insurance, finance, banking.
There you
Yes.
go. Even a boring like
Mhm.
a company selling books
Yeah.
or like let's say the non-tech industry,
Okay.
right? Which
Yes.
that's
Manufacturing,
90 or
retail.
95
Yeah.
exactly 90 95% of the companies in the world. I think with agents, many of them are going to be able to transition because you can just have an accountant agent and say, hey, do my accounting, and people are going to realize I pay this agent, 10% of my actual accountant of the salary. So I think agents is going to be a big change. Again, you have to think of agents today and agents 5-10 years from now. So
Right.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I have to be careful investing in companies just building specific agents. I've seen and used agents, and
Yeah.
overall,
Are
it's pretty
agents going
impressive.
to replace humans?
Some, yes, of course.
Yes. Okay.
It's not one, it's not 0 to 0 1. They're not
Mhm.
going to replace every agent, every
Right.
human for every job. But
Yeah.
yes, for some jobs, absolutely. But it's AI has already started replacing some human jobs already today.
Right.
Agents being, better, more independent, and they can see a task through.
Correct.
That's even easier for agents to replace.
Yes, as you mentioned, that is as of now, the AI agents are in such a shape that it just gives the data from the already existing data. But what the example which you mentioned is something out of the data, right? So
Yeah.
it is innovating and researching and coming up with different results. So that seems to be amazing, and all this within the guardrails and within the scope of the context. That makes sense.
It is
So
for me, it's super exciting. So let's see.
that's right. What are the some of the industries that you fund in? So is it based on AI or non-AI, or what's it about? What's your
Yeah.
investment
So
philosophy?
I've invested in AI after observing and being careful. Um, Today, by the way, like investing in AI, what does it actually mean? 100% of YC companies use AI. If you're not using AI today, you're making a very big mistake.
Correct.
Now, I haven't, I don't only invest in companies building AI models from scratch. That's the other extreme. So between using AI on your startup and then actually building your own model, there's a lot of different
Correct.
variations and shades.
Correct.
So I have invested in one company
Okay.
building their own model.
Okay.
They built a model from scratch with less than $1 million of cloud credits that they got at YC. Right, when you get in YC, you get
Correct.
five hundred
So you
thousand
mean the
dollars
foundation model?
Yes, they made a
Oh, that's
foundation model
great.
with less than $1 million. So that's pretty exciting. But um, I'm looking at AI startups like any other startup. I'm looking at are they able to acquire customers? What problem are they solving from them? And then what's the traction and the speed of which
Mhm.
they attract customers? So some of those AI startups are able to execute and sell very quickly. In that case, I'm interested. But it's I'm not investing in AI for AI's sake. I think startup investing is a game of value creation, and you create value by making something people want again, and
Mhm.
by selling something to a customer that a customer is ready to pay for because they derive value from it. So that's always the glasses with which I look to startups. So AI or not AI. But
Correct.
so to answer your question, yes, I've made
Okay.
many AI investments in the past year and a half.
Okay. So what were your other notable investments? Would you like to feature any of those and explain what were the key differentiators from the competitors? Would you like to
Well,
speak more about?
yeah, I can mention that I can mention two unicorns that I've invested in as in the seed round. So that was before my fund.
Oh, that's
That's one of the
great.
reasons my fund has been so oversubscribed. But I invested in 2020 in a company from YC, and today it's a unicorn. And then in 2021 in a seed round again, and today it's a unicorn. And so what's interesting is those two companies are both fintechs. I've always
Okay.
been quite interested in fintechs. The reason being my second, I believe, or maybe third angel investment when,
Mhm.
15 years ago, well, 12 years ago, I started in
Mhm.
2013, uh, was a fintech, and then it was acquired by, at the time was in France, it's
Oh, that's
nothing
great.
fancy, but it
Okay.
was acquired by a French bank. And then I
Hmm.
realized banks in France, but in the US as well, banks have tons of money
Hmm.
and have a very hard time innovating. And there's a lot of startups innovating in the financial sector, and so banks are going to have to acquire them. It's a necessity for them. It's an obligation, because if you don't acquire them, they're going to disrupt you and kill you. And so I realized at the time, this is, now fintechs is a little bit different, but I realized it's sort of a cheat code of angel investing, where you have a lot of banks with a lot of money that sort of have no choice but to acquire your startup. So if you're investing in fintech, so I've always, liked fintech for that reason, and because it always left, I always remember that very first exit. It wasn't my first, but it was my second or third or something, but very, very fondly. So, those are two companies that I want to mention.
Can you name those brands? What were those?
Yes, sure. Those two startups are Jeeves,
Okay.
Jeeves, from YC Summer 2020.
Okay.
I believe it's summer. I know it's 2020 for sure. It might be winter, but I think it's summer 2020. And then the other one is Baobab, BAUBAP, in Mexico, from YC Summer 2021. So again, those are not in my fund. The fund didn't exist at the time, but that's some of the reason why, I've been able to raise the fund. And then, in the fund today, there's already 16 companies. Many of them are doing extremely well. None of them is a unicorn, because the fund started in 23. It's very, very recent, and I mostly raised it in 24, by the way. So I could name all of the 16 that I love and that have a lot of potential. I'm not gonna single anyone out, but our portfolio is on our website, and those companies are growing very quickly, are fascinating, and I'm very excited to see where they go. And there's between 6 to 12% of YC companies, depending on the batch, that becomes unicorns. So I have I have faith that out of those 16, and the fund is going to have 40 investments, many of them are going to become very strongly, very, very quickly, very early on. Yeah.
Interesting. So what's the one piece of advice that you would give to founders who aspire to join Y Combinator? What's the secret sauce?
YC, I think, really accepts startups on the team. They're pretty vocal about it, that the idea doesn't matter that much, because there's a good chance you're going to pivot anyway.
Correct.
So I would say, have a great team. You need to be at least two. They do sometimes accept solo founders, but it's much harder. So you should be two. You should have at least one technical co-founder. Two is even probably even better. And then you should work on something that you have specific knowledge of. If, again, going back to, I started business on wine, but I knew nothing about wine, that doesn't work. You should work on something that says, well, I've, in my current job, I've had that problem and I know something about this, or my first startup taught me this and this and that. But attack a problem that you're uniquely positioned to solve, and it needs to be a big enough problem. It needs to be ambitious. If you're not ambitious, YC doesn't have any interest in backing. So if you have all of those things, I would say you're already, probably have a lot of chances to get in.
Cool, that's right. And what are the advice that you give for companies, or say founders, that they have great energy into them? They are actually technical co-founders, but the only thing which they lack is they are not based off San Francisco, or they do not have an Ivy League certificate, or say they are not from ex-Amazon or FANG companies. So there is a very less probability that they enter into Y Combinator, right? So what do you kind of understand? How do you read between the lines on this?
I mean, it is somehow true. I want to say that it's, not only Amazon and Apple and Google that make it to YC, but yes, it is a big. There's several of them. So
Correct.
You could potentially go and try to go to work at any of those companies for 2 years and then apply to YC. 2 years in your life is not that long, especially if you actually end up at YC, which is truly life-changing in my opinion. So you could potentially do that. And, by the way, getting to be hired in one of those big tech companies is quite difficult. You know, I think Google has
Yeah.
14 interviews or something. So
Correct.
this in itself, that's also why YC selects from that pool, as they say, those people that have already been selected.
Pre-vetted.
I know they're very good. This could also solve your problem of if you're not in Silicon Valley, this could be, you know, two birds, one stone. Taking a job at Google or Meta, whatever, would mean you would move to Silicon Valley. If you're outside of the US, you know, there's the visa issue, but that could also help to get the visa. So, and you know, if you think one step further, wherever you are, you can go to the Google or Meta office in your country. There's probably a Meta or a Google office in your country. Start there, become one of the best in your country, and then try to be transferred to the you know, to Silicon Valley. So that's, you know, one thing. That being said, you could do without all of that. There's a lot of people accepted in YC that are not from Google, from Meta, blah, blah, blah. If you're not in San Francisco today, you can just go there. Again, there's the visa issue, but that's what YC wants to find. They want to find resourceful people who are able to get stuff done. So that's, we could say it's your first, you know, your first problem to solve, right? And not that it's super easy, but there's a lot of people who come to the US and who are able to stay there legally. It is possible. And if you don't have the visa problem, it's even easier. You just move to San Francisco from wherever you are in the US, and that's it. So yeah, you know, nothing is impossible to solve. Nothing is too difficult. If you really want to do it, you can. And by the way, YC sometimes accepts people that are outside of San Francisco, just as long as you commit to come for the batch. But some people are accepted that are not living in San Francisco currently. So that's also possible. This really narrows down your chances and your odds, but it is possible as well. As long as you have a great company, a great product. Of course, if you're building in Europe or in India for the European, for the Indian market, that's not going to be interesting to YC. But if you're building for the US, then there's, you know, your odds are probably almost as good as anyone. YC is very amazing. It's a meritocracy. You know, there's no, people ask me sometimes, because you're close, because you know them, can you recommend me? Can you, you know, put in a good word? Sometimes I can, but actually it doesn't change much. I believe it changes nothing. I believe they're very happy to accept someone that they heard nothing about from no one, but the company is good. And then from me, if they hear praise, but they don't like it. So it really is meritocratic, which is great. You just have to do something that's good enough, and then you'll be accepted.
That's completely right. So the final question is, what's next for you, and how do you see Lobster Capital evolving in the next 5 years?
Well, so Fund 1 was a massive success. I'm very happy that it was over 150% oversubscribed. I'm investing it right now, and then after Fund 1 will come Fund 2, and after Fund 2 will come Fund 3. So that's probably in the next 5 years. I'm moving fast with everything that I do, including with the funds. I'm also building a media, so a podcast, a YouTube channel called The Lobster Talks, putting a lot of energy there, and it's already paying huge dividends for me in terms of investors that want to talk to me, but most importantly, companies, YC founders who want to talk to me and come on the show and sometimes have me invest in them. So that's me. I'm just going to keep doing what I do well, which is this media and investing and fundraising. And I don't need much else. Like I said, it's my passion. So that's it for me. But it's, you know, it's so simple to say and so difficult to execute. So that's going to keep me busy for quite a while.
Okay. All the very best for that. And thank you very much, Gabriel, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. For everyone tuning in, we hope you have taken away actionable insights, fresh inspiration, and a new perspective on navigating the world of startups and the venture capital. So, and if you have enjoyed today's show episode, leave us a review or share it with someone who benefit from Gabriel's wisdom. So keep disrupting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.